Leader behind that was ESPN. ESPN is unethical, and Stephen A. Smith is the head face of that.
Listen, it's really pathetic.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. Now, Jaylen Brown, Stephen A. Smith, they've been exchanging blows. They've been going back and forth in the media, and I'm going to play a clip of what Jaylen Brown had to say, and specifically in calling Stephen A. Smith out, and Stephen A.'s response.
Leader behind that was ESPN. ESPN is unethical, and Stephen A. Smith is the head face of that. But, you know, the organization, the players, they were all in agreement. They all knew what I meant by that.
Listen, I'm not going to go off. I was tempted to. But it's really pathetic, you know, and I don't think it's an accident that he went out of the country spewing that nonsense, because we're all tired of hearing from him here, because he's making absolutely positively no sense. You know, Jaylen Brown I can't believe what he has tried to make this into. You know, now the entire ESPN network is unethical. How are we unethical? What did we do to Jaylen Brown? I want to remind everybody, all of this is because Jaylen Brown, a champion, an NBA Finals MVP, and this year a top candidate for league MVP honors, lost a 3-1 lead in the first round to the Philadelphia 76ers and went on the air less than 24 hours later and called it his favorite season. This is after taking the Boston Celtics to 6 conference finals, 2 NBA Finals appearances, winning a championship, and a Finals MVP. This is also while Jason Tatum was on the bench for over 60 games this year due to his Achilles tear before coming back and having to sit out again. That's what all of this is about. Ladies and gentlemen, this ain't about something else that happened. There's nothing else that happened behind the scenes or anything like that. This is about a grown-ass man acting like a child because he doesn't like the fact that he went on the airwaves and spewed to the world that going home in the first round was his favorite season. I understand what he articulated and what he came back and said and tried to explain, equivocating the way that he did. I get it. I understand it. But Boston Celtics fans didn't want to hear that. Basketball fans didn't want to hear that. The reporters that cover on it, by the way, not just this network, on all the other sports networks, radio and television and podcasting. Kendrick Perkins is a former Boston Celtic. Who obviously has relationships with a whole bunch of people in that organization presently and in the organization formerly. And he's not the only one. And all of them were saying the same thing. But Jaylen Brown wants to call out ESPN and me. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm at a loss. Wendy, Vinny, I'm at a loss. And by the way, just as a reminder, y'all remember the thing that we got into a couple of years ago when I read a quote on the air, an anonymous quote about how he wasn't liked and he started wearing around state your source, state your source, state your source. That same segment, that same diatribe, I called up the quote because I wanted to read it to y'all again. I read an anonymous quote about him not being liked from a text that I received on the air. But I immediately talked about how Jaylen Brown is being underappreciated. It's not an attack. He's a superstar caliber talent and a model citizen who doesn't get into any trouble whatsoever. I called him an activist, politically conscious, and someone who speaks truth to power, that he deserves better, and I pointed to the lack of a sneaker deal amongst other things as proof that the system has failed him. He goes to in the Olympics when they had Tatum on the squad and Derek White on the squad and Drew Holiday on the squad. I called that out. You saw me call out when he got ejected from the San Antonio Spurs game. I sat down with him face to face in Boston, flew to Boston to interview him man to man, face to face, on camera. And I told him, you know, this is what they're saying about you. This is what I said. I said, they're wrong. You understand? You don't suffer fools. You're a good dude. You're not going to be easily manipulated. And sometimes people don't like that, and that's not what they want to work with. But that's not your fault. I said all of these things, and everything was fine. And because I respond, like everybody did, to you, less than 24 hours after getting home sent home in the first round, that's not something you should be saying. It does not look good.
Well, then Gary.
Back on Jaylen, he said on his stream last month that if it was up to him, he'd be in Boston for the next 10 years. From your conversations with him this offseason, do you get the sense that that's changed? Does he still want to be here?
I'll always keep our conversations private, and I think it's appropriate, regardless of what the content of those conversations are like. But I think what I said is really true. I don't love the fact anytime it's a big public thing. As you know, we try to keep things as close to the vest and quiet as possible. And at the same time, knowing that the rumor mill is the rumor mill and there's going to be a lot of noise out there, that's why you try to also meet and be upfront as possible. But yeah, listen, I can't say enough good things about Jaylen. But it isn't but I certainly am empathetic towards probably what that's felt like.
Shams, we're hearing what Brad Stevens is saying publicly here, but what is happening behind the scenes with the Boston Celtics?
Malika, the Boston Celtics are actively engaged in trade talks surrounding Jaylen Brown with multiple interested teams. And I'm told there is a sense of purpose from teams around the league that they feel from the Celtics in these conversations. And that does not mean, though, that a deal is guaranteed, because Jaylen Brown does have 3 years left on his contract. He's got a supermax deal that he's on. But my understanding, the urgency from either side could change as the weeks go on. And this all comes in the wake of the Celtics losing out on Giannis after they offered Jaylen Brown and 2 first-round picks. Giannis ends up with Miami, and now Jaylen Brown still in Boston. He won a Finals MVP in 2024. He was a league MVP finalist this year, and now his status is very much up in the air in Boston.